you noticed since the start of the war in Ukraine, Russia's military bases have a nasty habit of exploding. And it's not just bases. Oil depots, ammo dumps, factories, and even a printer churning out war propaganda have either been blown up, burned down, or met with unfortunate ends as fighting rages just across the border. Officially, Ukraine is saying nothing. But there is little doubt that Kiev is orchestrating at least some of these attacks, using a variety of methods to strike Russian soil, sometimes thousands of miles from the front line. Ukrainian agents were even accused of blowing up Daria Dugina, daughter of Putin propagandist Alexander Dugin, with a car bomb that was intended to kill him. While a truck bomb was also used to take out the Kerch Bridge earlier this year. So, where have these explosions and fires been taking place? How might Ukraine have carried them out? And what effect are they having on the war? Since February, Vladimir Putin has been attacking Ukraine with nearly every weapon in his arsenal, smashing entire cities to smithereens in the process. But the fire has not just been going one way. Far from it. Just a day after the conflict started, blasts rocked Russia's Milervo airbase near the Donbass region, along with a fire that destroyed at least one aircraft. That was the first of dozens, if not hundreds, of explosions and fires on Russian soil at sites that are linked to the military. Most recently, 2 Russian nuclear bombers were damaged in explosions at airfields near the cities of Saratov and Ryazan, where they were preparing attacks on Ukraine's energy network. Oil facilities in Bryansk and Kursk were also hit, and 2 mysterious explosions rocked shopping malls close to the capital of Moscow. This follows a pattern that has seen explosions and fires concentrated in the west of Russia, close to the border with Ukraine. Kursk and Bryansk, together with nearby Belgorod, have been targeted multiple times each because they serve as staging posts for Russian forces before they move into Ukraine. Moscow has also been targeted dozens of times and was the site of the blast that killed Dugina back in August as her distraught father looked on. But they have not been confined to the country's west. Blasts and blazes have also been reported thousands of miles further to the east in Siberia and even as far away as Vladivostok on the Sea of Japan. Military bases, arms factories and ammo dumps have, unsurprisingly, been among the most common targets, but army draft offices, factories that produce vehicle components, and oil and gas facilities have also been hit. For the most part, we don't know exactly how Ukraine is carrying out the strikes, with Kiev refusing to even acknowledge being behind them. In the case of Dugina, we do know that Ukrainian Special Forces agents, likely operating on Russian soil, planted the bomb that killed her, because someone in the CIA leaked that information to the press. We also know the attack on the Milervo airbase was carried out using a Tochka-U ballistic missile fired from somewhere in the Donbass after Ukrainian officials went public with that information. Otherwise, we've been left to guess. An early morning strike on a fuel depot in Belgorod back in April was thought to have been the work of Ukrainian helicopters that avoided Russian air defense to carry out the mission. Strikes on nearby military bases and ammo dumps were also thought to be the work of helicopters or low-flying attack jets. Many others are thought to be the work of drones, either dropping improvised munitions directly from overhead or else flying into the targets like the Iranian suicide craft that have been used to destroy Ukraine's own power network. Attacks on the air bases at Saratov and Bryansk in recent days were thought to be carried out using modified Tupolev 141 reconnaissance drones left over from the Cold War that Ukraine modified to carry explosives, effectively turning them into homemade cruise missiles. Fires and explosions further inside Russia are thought to be the work of sabotage groups. It is impossible to say whether these people are working with Ukraine or carrying out their own vendettas against the Russian government. At least some seem to be acting alone. Footage captured after Putin gave his mobilization order showed men setting light to or crashing their cars into military draft offices. These men appeared to have personal grudges with the government. But other fires and explosions, including one just this week at the Angarsk oil refinery, seem to be more organised because they have taken place at high-value sites which would likely have been protected. fires at 2 Moscow shopping malls don't appear to be connected to the war in Ukraine, but it is becoming increasingly difficult to tell. The effect of these strikes is hard to quantify. Certainly, they've not stopped Russian attacks on Ukraine, or badly damaged its ability to fight. Mostly, these strikes serve to boost Ukrainian morale while demoralizing the Russians. Each successful hit shows Ukraine and its supporters that Russia is not invulnerable, and adds to the impression that Kiev is winning the war. Conversely, such attacks are usually met with a mixture of bewilderment and fury by the Russian side, as state media's carefully constructed image of invincibility is undermined. The Kerch Bridge strike, for example, was widely cheered by Ukraine and its supporters, and is rumoured to have infuriated Vladimir Putin.
Сомнений нет, это теракт, направленный на разрушение, критически важный.
They also serve to remind ordinary Russians that the war is very real and capable of affecting their daily lives, which is something Kiev hopes may one day turn the Russian people against the Putin regime. Secondly, the blasts and blazes are obviously aimed at disrupting Russia's war effort, even if they can't stop it in its tracks. The airbase strikes in recent weeks took place just after experts had warned those bases were being used to prepare another large-scale attack on Ukraine's power network. In the event, it didn't stop Russia launching that attack, but it was noticeably smaller than bombardments earlier in the autumn, perhaps because Russia no longer deems it safe to have so many bombers loaded with so many missiles on a single runway at the same time. Meanwhile, strikes on the border areas may have played a role in Russia's stunning defeat near the city of Kharkiv, where Ukrainian troops successfully routed Putin's armies and drove them back dozens of miles in just a few days. Again, it cannot be conclusively proved how much the cross-border strikes contributed to this, but the area where the rout happened immediately borders Belgorod, where a lot of the strikes took place. Whatever the case, it seems unlikely that Russian bases, depots and factories will give up their bad habit of exploding anytime soon. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe.